do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
And what a clustered fuck this is.
I think John's words summed it up beautifully. How are you, folks? How was your weekend? Did you have a nice one? Did you go out and march? Not many of you did. Well, I mean, it was great to see so many of you out and marching. But the numbers, I've got to say, were a little bit surprising for mine. Sydney's numbers, I thought, were down. There was about 5,000-6,000 people there for that. That was the Australians United Against Government Corruption, which I thought was something we could all get behind pretty easily, pretty quickly, pretty smartly, but didn't appear so. But there was a bit of confusion. There were some very, very confusing elements that were put out in the week leading up, particularly to the Sydney event. And there is all sorts of dramas. Pardon me while I find my glass cleaning device. There's all sorts of dramas now about who threatened who and who said what to whom and when things were said and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's going to be a bit of a problem for them going forward because the them that I'm speaking of is Simeon and Aussie John. Well, I beg your pardon, John the Pirate and Aussie Cossack. Don't want to go mixing up their names. So they're getting their sequences out of wrong. They're getting wrong. They're getting their times and places wrong and all that sort of stuff in whatever accusations are being made. And I saw John whinging about some of them. And I'll be honest, all I really have to say...
What a clustered fuck this is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, absolute. So let's start with Sydney and what happened there. Well, actually, before we get into that, I should say hello to everybody who's got in the room. And nice to see you in. First in the house tonight was Deb, Spazza, Tony, who'll be starring in the show a little bit later on, or at least pictures and video that he took will be starring. He became our scout, if you like, our or stringer, as they are known in the game. Took his camera out. Bend this microphone around a bit. You hearing me all right? And did some video yesterday at a big rally in Bendigo. It was wonderful to see so many people out there fighting against the tyrannies of the Victorian state government. And Tony went along as our representative and managed to cop an interview with Wade Northausen, which we'll play, and picked up a lovely little piece from a lady named Clair, who's coming off a beautiful property in a lovely part of Victoria. If you don't know it, the Healesville area is a wine growing area. It's also a big farming area. Not all that far from Bendigo. It's sort of between Bendigo and Seymour, I guess. Violet Town, that sort of area. Beautiful, beautiful little town. And what are they building there? They're building a battery farm, a solar battery farm on 2.5. Anyway, we'll let her tell you about it. And those folks in that part of the world very happy about it. Also, the CFA in that part of the world, not just the CFA, but the farmers who provide the tankers. In most cases, they've got their own firefighting tankers on their own properties and are always there to help the proper CFA. So there's a lot of that going on. And a big parade yesterday, big march, big protest through the streets of Bendigo, fire trucks, tractors, the whole deal. So we will catch up on all of that going forward. There is so much in the chat. I can't see any questions at this stage. Hello to everyone. God love you all. And I'm just trying to see if there's any new names floating around in here tonight or some I haven't seen in a while. Giselle, I saw floating around. I don't know. I haven't seen your name floating in here for a while. So good to have you back. Ride the Spiral, which I just think is a great name. Love that name. Very good. Wish I'd have thought of it. Okay, let's keep on, shall we? Where to begin? Where to begin? All right. Well, let's start with this. The Australia Unites Against Government Corruption, although I don't see that on that particular poster, was a rally put on by Mick Sims and Mary Jane in Sydney on Saturday. It had Hoodie at it. It had John Lartner at it. Cass spoke at it. Michael Gray Griffith got up for a bit. Guru got up for a bit. And there's a bit of a story behind that. And all in all, I would say pretty successful. There was a lot of drama and a lot of unnecessary stress that was put in the few days prior to this event coming on. And that is because Aussie Cossack and John decided to get together, and they decided they were going to try to get on the stage, which is great. They tried every way they could, but nobody was talking to them. Eventually, as you heard last week, the Cossack reached out to me. Desperation must have been at peak level for him to reach out to me. And I've tried to put them together, tried to make it happen, but there was just absolutely no way. It all sort of kind of turned.
What a clustered fuck this is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. And they went their separate ways. So Cossack at that point decided he was not just going to put on another rally, he was going to teach everybody a lesson that Sydney is his town, and he made a video about it. He didn't bother getting actually fully dressed for it. He just did it
When you come to
topless.
Sydney, mate, just know this is the Aussie Cossacks' backyard.
I did ask him why he did it topless. He said, well, maybe I was just working out in the gym. So good luck to him.
When you come to Sydney, mate, just know this is the Aussie Cossacks' backyard.
So that's off his video that he put out last week. And I can tell you that the rest of the video is very much like that. And the conversations that I had with him, he was very agitated, very, very upset that they'd said no. And then he made a great deal of threats about what he was going to be putting out instead. Now, he did not, and I will say this categorically, he did not threaten anyone's life. I don't know what John said anywhere, but the Aussie Cossack did not, in any conversation with me, threaten anybody's life, least of all Mary Jane's or Mick Sims. I want to make that absolutely clear. All right? In no way, shape, or form did he threaten Mary Jane or Mick Sims in any kind of physical way. Right? Did not happen. Did not happen. He did make a lot of threats against the event about disrupting it. Now, I'm going to play a piece here from John and let him, well, you'll hear him whinge. And his whinge is because police stopped what the Cossack and John had planned. And what they had planned was to bring their horde of supporters, their great, huge numbers of supporters. And the Aussie Cossack said on the phone to me last week that he'd pay people $50 each just to turn up, just to say they got a bigger crowd. Well, if that was the case, then the check never turned up in the mail. The people never got paid because very few, like a handful, less than 10 of the Aussie Cossacks supporters turned up to help John and the Freedom Union with their barbecues, their generator, their gazebos, and their very large banners, which they planned with their large horde of Freedom Union supporters. Oh, wait, no. There was maybe half a dozen Freedom Union people who turned up to help as well. Nobody else. Now, this is a considerable dent in John and the Freedom Union, I would suspect. It should be viewed in this way by any sort of, I don't know, I was going to say sensible person, but any fair person would view it this way. Quite simply, nobody turned up to help. Nobody. Other than the people who were closest to him. And in that, let's call it 10. Let's call it 12. it doesn't matter. There weren't enough people to carry everything into where it had to be. But as it turned out, they didn't have to carry much. So what happened? Well, about midnight, they rolled in, and this was the plan, to sneakily roll in and I'll just turn this light on. So the plan was to sneakily roll in at midnight and set up a stage in what is the prime stage area in Hyde Park. And that is the area when you have a Form 1 that you're usually told that's where your stage will be. So they thought they'd get in before before Mary Jane and Mick's United Australia rally and pinch that particular spot. So my understanding is the truck turned up at sort of midnight. Somebody or some bodies got out and unloaded the scaffolding onto the side of the road and then went off to park the truck somewhere where they could, then come back to put up the scaffolding. By the time they got back, the person who was watching the scaffolding had been accosted by the local council, that's Sydney City Council, who were ready for just such a ploy by the sound of it. And they came out with their own truck and they picked up the scaffolding and were loading it all back onto their truck. When it was all loaded, they promptly drove it away. This was about 2:00, 2:30 in the very early morning of Saturday. John was called. There was a panic. I don't know that there was a panic, but John came down. It didn't take him very long to get out of the hotel that he was staying in and to where this all happened. I don't know the prices of hotels in and around Hyde Park in Sydney, but the Freedom Union apparently has plenty of money, according to the Aussie Cossack. Thousands of dollars, mate. John's raking it in. So I'm paraphrasing there, but the Aussie Cossack was very vocal about how much John had, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that the ticket may have been clipped on the way past because they needed to buy a generator. I don't think John put that on his carry-on or even underneath luggage on the way down. The generator looked very large. It was on the back of a big four-wheel drive ute, and it was very large. I would say it was easily more than 6 kVA. I would say probably 8 to 10 kVA. Very big, very heavy, very expensive. John bought that. It's owned by the Freedom Union. He said so in a video. And I think there were 5 barbecues, and we were all looking forward to the barbecue. I know John's deal was he wanted to feed his sausage to as many people as possible, and this was the amount of sausage that you were going to be fed. I don't know that there's 5,000 rolls there, much less 5,000 sausages. But at any rate, they were going to feed any number of people, that number of people by the look of it. But as it happened and as it turned out...
What a clustered fuck this is, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. They were barred from bringing in their staging, and then so John said, righto, well, this was about 8:30 or maybe 8:00 in the morning. They decided to walk in with the barbecues, walk in with their gazebos and set up. The police stopped them before they could get into the park again and basically said, no, you can't set up a barbecue in the park. Going to be a lot of people here today. That's a fire hazard, a fire risk, public health risk, public this risk. No, you're not doing it. And then they said, well, we'll just set up our gazebos then, our tents, and put up our banners. And they said, well, no, if you have a look on your Form 1, can you tell me where it says you're allowed to set up a tent or you asked to set up a tent? And John didn't put in the Form 1. He just signed it. Had no idea. In fact, he didn't even have a copy of it. So that didn't go very well. He had somebody, Pettit, who I think has popped into our chat on the odd occasion. I think Paul was with him. Paul, look, I know what you're trying to do, and I appreciate you trying to do it. But, dude, if you're going to do it, can you have a shower and put on a clean tracksuit at the very least? It's a very bad look given the language that you were using and what you were trying to express. And while I appreciate what you were trying to do, it's just not a good look. And I'm surprised that John sort of didn't say something because, well, I guess when you've got a dozen of your Freedom Union members turning up. Somebody said no audio. Don't know where that was. You are hearing me, aren't you? I just flicked back to the chat for a minute, and that no audio thing was a long time back in the chat. So, all good. All right, thanks, Vince. So, what the hell was I saying? So yes, the Cossack and John were stopped at every turn. The tents weren't allowed to be set up because they weren't on the Form 1. The banners weren't allowed to be set up because they were a public hazard, given that, as I told you he would, John was going to roll out a bloody huge banner, and he would have done it right in front of the march, in front of the TV cameras, and blocked out everything else and tried to claim the rally for his own. But he was a bit pissed off, and here he is explaining what's happened.
We have been swarmed. There is hundreds of police down here at Hyde Park, and they have swarmed the Freedom Union, and they're trying to get us out of this park. We can't set up our barbecues here. We can't put our banners, these banners up anywhere. They're doing everything to wreck our participation in this protest, ladies and gentlemen. They tried to have me arrested. They tried to have me arrested, ladies and gentlemen, the last time down at Speaker's Corner. We're doing it hard, and these people want us out. You've got to see what's going down there. They've come and stolen our stage.
So just note how John has phrased all of that, all right? Oh, they've done this to us. They've done that. They've hijacked this. They've done this. They've done the other. Well, one of the other things he uses, they tried to arrest me. They tried to arrest me, ladies and gentlemen. Last time down at Speaker's Corner. He's referring to the last time, months and months and months ago, where he wasn't allowed to take over anything there either. He tried to hijack, I think it was Craig Kelly and John Ruddock and the Aussie Cossack putting on something in there. Because as we all know, if you are going to put on a protest
when you come to Sydney, mate, just know this is the Aussie Cossacks' backyard.
And he can, look, there is no doubt about it. With his help, you'll get a fantastic, well, it used to be with his help, you'd get a fantastic result. You'd get a lot of people, provided you had a good cause. And if you needed help, Aussie Cossack could help you with staging, with sound, with PAs, with big screens. So if you wanted him to speak, he could beam in from the consulate. So, yeah, unfortunately, just on the Cossack, I have missed out on his 1,000-day incarceration in the Russian consulate interview. Sadly, I've not been invited, and I haven't been contacted again since the phone calls last week, and I don't expect to be. There is a new YouTuber who's very surprised, I think, to be summoned, as it was, to be the lucky recipient of this 1,000-day incarceration interview. It's going to be made to look like I'm a Julian Assange. When Cossack actually went into the consulate, I rang and we had a conversation, and he said, "I'm going to do a Julian Assange," and I roared my ass off. I said, "Well, there's a big difference between you and Julian Assange." No, there's not. No, there's not. No, there's not. And I said, "Well, he was a political prisoner, and you're avoiding criminal charges, which you could win, I would have thought, with a good lawyer." Oh, I can't win anything in Sydney. And I think he was probably right. He couldn't win. They wanted him. And they still want him, if evidence on the weekend is anything to go by. Now, it's been a while since there were any rallies of any note in Sydney, be they union or otherwise. And the Cossack, well, now it's getting springtime. It's back into rally season. So there's likely to be a protest about something somewhere in Sydney at some stage, just about every weekend, probably a few. And the Cossack's business is being able to help facilitate those rallies and people and promote them. Unfortunately, based on the evidence that we have of the amount of help that turned up and the success of their, I don't know what you would call it, anti rally, or whatever they were going to put on, well, they got nobody. Less than 20 people, well, I'll be honest, let's be generous, say less than 30 people actually turned up to help. And one of the biggest disappointments personally, one of the very biggest disappointments personally for me, is that there wasn't one porta toilet to be seen. Now, if the Aussie Cossack truly was going to and really wanted to screw up that rally, if he really wanted to make it very difficult for people and police and everybody else, all he had to do was come good on his, we're going to bring portaloos or toilets on trailers to the park, so everybody will have a place to wee after they've drunk John's water. Was there water in that picture earlier? I don't remember looking. Is there water? No, water must have been in another picture. However, they did have water, and they wanted to share that. They weren't allowed to do that either. So what happens to the food? Well, my understanding is 30 kilos of it went to a bloke in a pub who really likes onions and was prepared to freeze some of them and eat some of them and plough his way through the rest at will. 30 kilos. I don't know. That's a lot of onions. You probably feed 5,000 people an onion ring or two at that sort of rate. What happened to the meat? Well, last heard of, it was being frozen. Don't know where. Don't know how. Maybe they're using John's new generator and he had to go off and buy a new fridge or something, or esky, to get it all cold. I don't know whether it's coming back to Queensland and whatnot. There was no offer to go and feed the homeless, certainly no offer to take the new barbecues that the Freedom Union purchased and weren't able to use, to take them out and feed the homeless in Sydney on Saturday night or Sunday or any other time. So I don't know what they're doing with that. I guess as it's become clearly apparent, John probably has a plan.
What a clustered fuck this is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. And it is. The Freedom Union is clearly... Well, no, I'm not going to talk about the Freedom Union. I am going to talk about the way John talks things up. And the Cossack talks things up. And I can play you many examples of him explaining just how good he is at things. And he is and has been very good for putting on protests in the past. But how controlled have they been? There's been money changing hands in the background. Fees have to be paid for things like stages, PAs, public toilets, and big screens. And, well, let's face it, the Cossack's not making a huge Australian income, I don't think. YouTube have turned him off. He is ploughing away on Telegram, doing his bits and pieces there. But all they are propaganda hit pieces at the moment, particularly. And this shit they're trying to put together against Mary Jane and Mick Sims is just incorrect. So my understanding of this is, should we just point this out for the last time? My understanding is a death threat was laid, spoken directly to either Mick or Mary Jane 3 years ago at some rally or around some rally or to do with some rally 3 years ago. I don't know what rally. But it's a 3-year-old threat that has been remembered, and remembered in a way that I think I saw Mick talking to Chris from Chris Goveries, who I shared a lot of his vision on the weekend. Thanks, Chris. We must meet one day. But I saw a great interview that he did there and was very eloquent. So I think that's all I wanted to say about that. I've probably said too much already, but I'm disappointed that they tried this. They didn't need to do this. They could have come together. They wouldn't have got a spot on the stage, but they wouldn't have been able to just bleat and moan and whine about this. And you can see by the way that John has put together his, they did this, they did that, they did the other to us. They don't tell you that they were going in to hijack the best stage. They were going in to hijack the best signage spots. They were going to hijack the barbecues and the people and do whatever they could. And if that didn't work and their PA wasn't big enough, their stage wasn't big enough, they were prepared to go and buy out Sydney's supply of megaphones and stick them in the hands, presumably, of people at $50 an hour to shout obscenities and accusations at Cass and Mary Jane about Freedom Financial Solutions, who, if any of you know and have dealt with them in any way, shape or form, you'll know that they are nothing but a highly professional bunch of people who simply give you an opportunity to take control of your own wealth. They don't take anything from you outside of the fees required to get your money out of Big Super and stick it in whatever you decide it's going into. Your self-managed super fund can only go into certain things. Gold and silver, I would say right now, are probably the best of them to be sticking it in. Let me just have a look. The gold price right now is $5,469. It's gone down, $67, gone down in the last little 15th. Silver today has been riding up around 63.5. It's just down to $63.29 now. That's the spot price for silver. Platinum is still going up, $2,104.74 for an ounce of platinum right now. And what are we talking ounces of? Kilos of silver, 2,034.82 and $175,781.38 if you happen to have it lying around, if you'd like a kilo of gold. I had that in my hand the other day, a kilo of gold, and it was a rare coin, so it was just under $200,000 worth, pardon me, $200,000 worth of magnificence. So thank you very much to Ainsley Bullion, who let me hold that as it was going out the door. So thank you, Sydney. That was all great. We think it went over pretty well, and it was great to see the division that we were afraid was going to happen really didn't get any support whatsoever. And Dave Graham, who was going to speak on the Cossack and John's stage, he came in very quietly from behind. I wish I had a sailing term for that, but he's caught a bit of wind out wide and he's flanked everybody, swept in at the last minute and managed to get on stage, along with Donna from the Corruption Whistleblower, who I haven't had time to download her very excited speech, but she's very motivated. And if you've ever met Donna from the Corruption Whistleblower, you will understand just how motivated that wonderful woman is. She's a nurse, right? And she feels unbelievably for the deception and the corruption, the coercion that so many people have faced. She has lost all faith in the business that she loved for so many years, and now she and her other half, Pete, the Corruption Whistleblower, and they are wonderful people. If you haven't got a copy of the Corruption Whistleblower, go online and get it, corruptionwhistleblower.com.au. I think it's $2.50 if you download it online, $5 if you buy it off someone on the streets, but you'll be helping everybody out if you do that. So if you see them around, please grab one. Let's move on. I've got more news about the Corruption Whistleblower coming up in days, weeks, and months ahead, folks. Look out for us together next year in a lot of places. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I want to touch quickly on Charlie Kirk's ring. I told you the other night that this is a flick ring, what they call a flick ring. Now, you can see that this ring opens up on the side. Charlie uses it as a bit of a fidget there, and that ring is falling down. Now, this isn't the day in question, but this shot is the day in question. That is the same ring. It's in the flipping position here. It's actually starting to come loose. And in the next few frames, it looks like it's actually on the pinky. I thought I'd got those frames down, but I didn't. This is essentially, this frame is one of the frames where the bullet has struck Charlie already. So that's why it's zoomed in as it is, and it's a bit pixelated. But that's how that ring works. And I think Vince was working on it. I don't know if he got through it or not. He had a big weekend. Not drinking, just family stuff and helping me out. Well, actually, he didn't on Saturday. That's right. I don't know if he's cut that video together yet, but there is a video, and you can see the ring is actually ejected off his hand as the chair goes back and Charlie goes back. So discount that ring theory that it was going to go on to his other finger, because it certainly wasn't. So after the big rally on Saturday in Melbourne, and there were quite a few people at the rally in Melbourne against government corruption. There was probably 10,000, a little under 10,000, let's say. Not as big as we had hoped. But yesterday in Bendigo, the Defend rally got together. Stand together, defend what matters. That is, defend your CFA volunteers, defend the farmers, defend the Victorian community, and Victorians getting together. And they certainly got together in Bendigo, can I tell you. The CFA came out in force. The Lake Bolac tanker was there. I can tell you that's a pretty fair drive from Lake Bolac to Bendigo in the tanker. That's got to be a good 6 or 7 hour drive. Maybe they left it empty. You can see these pictures taken by Tony, marvelous man that he is. So a really, really good turnout there, and some wonderful people that really rolled out to press their message, including this lovely lady named Clair. No solar factory, save Colbinaban. Now, most people, I imagine, watching this program will never have heard in their life of Colbinaban. But Colbinaban is a lovely, lovely little place that is not too far away from Bendigo, and it looks like I haven't loaded up the Colbinaban bit. I have. There it is. I'm an idiot. Let me Claire will tell you about it.
Hi, I'm Claire Tui from the Colbinaban Renewable Action Group, and we've been fighting for nearly 3 years now for a massive solar battery factory at Colbinaban on 2,500 acres. Jacinda Allen and Sonia Kilkenny have approved a permit, but we're still going to fight because it's on prime agricultural land in the heart of the Heathcote wine region. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Is a truly beautiful part of the world. I've been there a number of times, not so much to the wineries. I've been to a lot of wineries around Victoria, but Healesville ones have hitherto escaped me. Another bloke who is a great friend of the Voice of Freedom, and we are a big fan and friend of Billboard Battalion. I'm talking about Wade Northausen. Now, Wayne was in Melbourne on Saturday. We were lucky enough to pick up with Tony once again, who went to the Melbourne event for me and set up a camera on a stand and wandered around and gave us those pictures for the whole day out of Melbourne, along with Amanda Sheedy. I cut to her a couple of times too. And there were a couple of others I may have dropped in. In Sydney, I may have jumped into Joel Jamal's Turning Point feed at the time, but I think everybody was taking Chris Govery's his camera, and then a few others that were floating around. So it was bloody great. The Brisbane event we'll get to, but let's talk about Wade and what a great man he is. He was working so hard, not just for the people of Victoria, but that's obviously his primary focus at the moment. But he is working hard for all of us. Just listen to this great fellow.
These people hate Australia. They hate you, your families, and Australia. So at the end of the day, I don't really care what anyone says. Those are the facts. These people are in the business of destroying our country, your families, and everything we've got here. G'day, Carl. How you going, mate? We're talking to Carl Leopold here. So we're just here in Bendigo, mate. Today is Sunday the 14th of September 2024, 25. Okay, this is going well. So, we're doing our lives here, Carl. This is an enormous mass of people here. We've got fire trucks, we've got tractors, they're all over Bendigo. And we'll be moving out soon in a decent old protest around Bendigo. All right, mate. Beautiful. Well, I'll keep going with what we're doing here and keep up the good work, eh? Well done, mate.
And check out the Billboard Battalion, no doubt coming to a town near you soon. I've got to make sure I advise him that if he's
when you
going
come to Sydney, mate, just know This is the Aussie Cossacks' backyard.
And that's how it is. So I do have a couple of little things that I want to catch up. Oh, God, I'm trying to rearrange videos here, and it's not working very well at all. I think I've done it. All right. Close, but no cigar. We'll see. This is either going to get very messy or it's going to work out. What else was I going to tell you about this evening? There were a couple of other bits and pieces I thought were worthy of mentioning. Here's a great picture of the crew that put on Sydney. I didn't put any of these great pictures up from Sydney. I beg your pardon. And I was going to tell you about Brisbane. How joyous. There would have been some wonderful pictures coming out of Brisbane, I'm absolutely sure, except most of the people taking them left within about 30 minutes or 40 minutes of the speeches beginning. It turned out the Brisbane March wasn't a march at all. It was a rally around Tricky for the most part. Now, I've received, I don't know how many emails, how many messages and phone calls from people who attended and left in abject disgust. I'm sure you have seen many examples of it because people haven't been shy on TikTok, on YouTube and anywhere else, Facebook, holding back on the disgust that they felt for the organiser of the Brisbane event, the organiser being Tricky. Now, I've listened to Tricky's speech and, well, where do you begin? He started out by begging for sympathy because he was fixing everybody else's rally and all the shit that was going down during the week, putting out their fires. First time I'd heard of it, particularly with anything to do with Sydney. He had nothing to do with Sydney, as I'm aware. And I'm pretty confident he had nothing to do with Melbourne. We can ask Darren Bergworth about that, but I'm pretty sure there wasn't any Tricky involvement there, unless it was with the other side, which we'll talk about on another night. Tricky came out. I think he had a moment's silence for, well, it wasn't for Australia. He bagged everybody around the March for Australia campaign, a march which attracted a bigger crowd than he was able to attract. Once again, a very poorly promoted event. He refused, for whatever reason, or didn't take up the offer of coming on this show to try and promote what he was doing. And I suspect that's because I would have asked where the march was going. He would have had to say, we're not marching. Who have you got as speakers? And he would have told me who he had as speakers, or at least tried to tell me a few of them. And I don't think that would have engendered much support from me or you. So it probably wouldn't have been great. Instead, he took the greatest opportunity to get the largest audience he could to explain that sometime last year he had his container broken into, a storage container, and lost twice and lost stuff out of it. And he started handing a bucket around for money, and then started promoting his own merchandise, which, look, ordinarily I don't have much of a problem with, but Tricky has a job, a day job, and he gets a little bit of help when required through political funding. That was cut off to him for this particular event because no political donations were allowed, as far as I'm aware, from the organisers. From like that was a national thing or even an international agreement. Even that international group that these people are a part of, these organisers are a part of, even that group sounds a little dodgy now that I've discovered just how much of a group it really is. So the coordination for this rally was either really, really, really piss poor, or it was meant to be really, really piss poor and just used as a fundraiser for certain people. However, the Brisbane rally was a shocker. I mean, I don't know where to begin other than to potentially use John.
What a clustered fuck this is, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, absolutely. So between Tricky and his group of supporters, who I'm sure are going to come and try and henpeck me now, don't bother. I don't care. I won't reply. I don't bite back. I don't involve in that low form of communication. because it is low. You can heap as much abuse on me as you like. I don't care. And only on a slow day when I'm bored and want to amuse myself will I ordain to bother answering one of you maybe and stir you up a little bit more. But at the moment, I'm a bit busy in my days doing things. So, no, I wouldn't expect anything out of me, you trolls. All right. Here's the biggest laugh I've seen in a little way. Doomsday predictions on climate change risk warns hundreds of Australians could die from heat-related ailments. Get this. I particularly think that the logic being used... Why isn't this changing over? Now it's changing over. All right, so this out of news.com. Property values are going to dive up to $500 million worth by 2050. I would have thought they've probably gone up by about $1 billion by then anyway, judging on current things, as homes become uninsurable and floods, cyclones and bushfires lay siege to Australia, according to a very grim climate risk assessment. This will be the one the government chooses to act on, I have no doubt. Australia's first national climate risk assessment, released today by the Albo Sleazy government, has outlined the grim prediction of cascading, compounding and concurrent risks if leaders fail to act on climate change. Rising sea levels, floods, cyclones, heat waves, droughts and bushfires are set to hit Australia more frequently, increasing heat-related deaths, sending insurance premiums through the roof. The report outlined a doomsday scenario over 1,000 heat-related deaths in Sydney and Melbourne alone if political leaders fail to act on climate change. The assessment aims to provide a comprehensive understanding of Australia's current future climate risks and will inform the government's new national emissions reduction target for 2035. So this piece of... Wow, here's a graph. Isn't that an impressive graph? It outlines that the projected heat-related deaths in Sydney and Melbourne, Perth, Townsville, Darwin are going to go through the roof if we get more than a 3-degree increase. Now, I don't think they've been able to get 1 degree in the last 50 years, but the narrative has to change. See, so now we're going to 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, 3 degrees. So there's going to be, 100 extra deaths at 1.5 degrees temperature-wise. That's bullshit. There'll be a lot more deaths than 100 because the wind farm and the solar power isn't going to be working. Therefore, the air conditioners aren't going to work. So anybody who might suffer from heat-related issues isn't going to be able to stay inside and turn the air conditioner on in the cool. Shit, they'll be lucky to be able to afford a fridge that makes a little bit of ice so they can shove half a dozen ice blocks down their jocks just to keep cool in summer. It's not climate change that's going to kill people. It's lack of electricity, lack of air conditioning, lack of basic services, and a huge lack of basic decency. Ugly pricks. Further to news of Charlie Kirk's very sad passing and news that Donald Trump will be turning up in Arizona at his funeral, at the stadium funeral that is being organised for him. What a global event that is going to be. You might remember a few years ago, there was a gentleman very controversial who came out and was doing tours around America, doing universities, doing big entertainment centre events here in Australia. I want to say he came to a couple or did at least one tour in Australia, maybe more. And then the UK was very large, very big in the UK and across Europe as well. He spoke a lot of truth. He was a very big Donald Trump supporter. I'm going back to the time before Donald Trump's first campaign or during his first campaign. And this bloke then disappeared. Just, I retire. He must have made enough money. God knows he did make a lot of money. But now, after Charlie Kirk's assassination, guess what? Milo is coming back. He is unretiring. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, to be honest. But we will see what happens. I haven't seen anything from him yet, but I've got to admit I haven't eagerly gone out seeking it either. Many of you probably feel the same way, I trust. Yeah, there are several people. Yes, there are a lot of people that state Santa is real too, and he comes around once a year. Just saying. I have seen all sorts of videos saying that Charlie's alive. There's a very detailed video of a neck, a fake neck that's being cut, and a blood bag being inserted into it, and then showing it being executed, so to speak. Look, there are a lot of things that it could be, but I don't feel good talking about this because it sort of requires having a very dispassionate view of death and looking at what happened to Charlie at the time it happened, frame by frame, which I have done now. And some people are not up for hearing the minutiae of this. And that's why I have refrained from sort of going through it. And I can't really show anything of it to you. Can to a certain point, but a lot of what you want to see actually happens from the wound and that point on. And it's not the wound you're watching, it's everything else in it you're watching and what his body is doing. I don't know anybody who has ever shot something and killed it, pretty much dead straight away, knows that was no makeup. No makeup. That was a kill shot. Can guarantee it. Never seen. AI would be noticeable in everything else that I've looked at. Nobody else is coming out and claiming it's to be AI. I have other angles that you probably, well, maybe many of you have seen, I don't know. But there are things we look for. I've had a long conversation with a bloke who gave me the algorithms basically for hair in video games and that sort of thing, so that hair does different things in the wind, for instance, all that. If you look at Charlie's hair, well, in the shot, the point of impact, Charlie is compressed and goes forward slightly into the chair, but his hair stays up, if you like. His head comes down so fast with such great impact that his hair didn't have time to stay on his head as he went down. That in an AI thing is very hard to fake, and despite having a long conversation with Ben about it, my analysis is that it's a dead set real thing that you are watching. I would pray that it's not. I would hope that he would come back. If not for the people, then for his wife and two gorgeous children. But what his public execution will do following his funeral is anyone's guess. There's been another atrocity in America in the last couple of hours to do with a Cuban motel manager who had some cleaners cleaning a room, and he asked them not to use a certain washing machine to clean stuff. And apparently one of the workers decided to kill him. Not just kill him, but to chop his head off in front of his wife and child, and then kick his head like a soccer ball a couple of times out into the car park, where he went and picked it up and threw it in a dumpster. Police arrested him, covered in blood, a couple of miles down the road, but he already cut the head off this bloke, all because he asked him not to use one washing machine. There was another one there to use. This bloke was an illegal immigrant who had been detained under the Biden administration, and they wanted to send him back to Cuba, but Cuba didn't want him because he was such a violent criminal. So what did the Biden administration do? They released him into the community. There you go. So Unfriggin' believable, Scotty. And I'm not sure what that comment was referring to, but I could not agree more. Don't forget, folks, we need your help to wrap up draw number 5, I think it is, for our $750 cash and or 1 ounce of silver. You'll get either or if you're first or second out of the draw. The cash will be the first thing, the silver will be the second, and our Byron Bobs are rolling out the door. Can I say I sent a pile of them off to people today. I'm still waiting for a few more holders at least to turn up from Vince, and then I'll be posting out the rest. I hope I get enough to post out the rest. And there are a couple of other people, including Silver Fox, I'm led to believe. Thank you, mate, for helping out. I believe your boxes are going to be, or your holders are going to be absolutely spectacular. And we've also had a suggestion made that we should make one that is either in half ounce or full ounce, and or using the Byron Bob 1/10 ounce, making them 2 deep. So you can put 2 ounces of the Byron Bobs in the one holder. So we're taking all those on board. But right now, if you want one of those, then it'll be easy to get if you email me, carl@vofhq.com. We would love you to come and do that. And we will get them to you as soon as Vince has printed these things up. We've only got 50 tickets left in the current draw. Don't forget, we help the Donkey Sanctuary out every time this draw goes off. They receive pretty much half of whatever is left. And, well, it helps to feed the donkeys. It helps to get a few hooves cleaned, tamed, whichever way that works. Teeth are a big thing. So who knew? Farrier days happen once a month. So it's one of these things that continually has to happen. I see there's been a few comments about the Brisbane thing in there and a few other bits and pieces. Getting on a bit late now to go into those. I do apologize. I have seen some very interesting, well, do we call it crap or do we call it something else, to do with the shooter? Now, there are a lot of stories being put up about the young man, Tyler, I think his name is, who has been arrested by the FBI and is not helping them out. Apparently, his trans lover, who he has been sharing a house with, a male transiting to female, or transitioning, I don't know, to female, that helping a great deal, and so's this bloke's family. However, this, I think I may have screwed up this edit somewhere, so this might be looking a little bit weird, but this came across my desk within 6 hours, I'd say, of the show. Oh, no, more than that. Well, this was probably within 6 hours of them saying and showing pictures of a lump on the roof. Bear in mind, this progression of information on the shooter came out over 2 days, but I got this within 6 hours.
Provided by the FBI.
You'll have to watch this again.
Provided by the FBI. I am an AI-generated avatar of the suspect, created based on information provided by the FBI.
There you go. An AI-created version of the suspect, created by information provided by the FBI. AI is everywhere. Everywhere. So is there really somebody in custody? Did this really happen? All these questions and more will be answered as soon as enough of us wake up and get rid of governments like ours. You ready for that, folks? I don't know when the next government or anti-corruption rally is going to happen, but I do know that there will be another rally coming up. I think it's in October, and I think Beck Freedom is organising one in Sydney. I know that the same people who organised the march for Australia in Brisbane last time and who got bagged out by Tricky and defamed by Tricky on stage when he knew better. Unless he somehow has evidence that the people who organised the last March for Australia rally in Brisbane are somehow associated with the NSN, then I would expect Tricky might have something of a significant defamation case coming his way in the very near future, in which case I guess he'll hold the bucket out again or sell a bit more merch. You know, it really is just as John said.
And what a clustered fuck this is.
I don't think I've got much to add to that tonight, folks. Oh, I do have something that'll help you sleep better. All right. Where to begin? Well, we'll start here. One of the wonderful people who is out there with you lives in far north Queensland and sent me 3 videos, which I'll play you now. I'm going to start calling this time of the night Pet Corner, although this isn't a pet. So in far north Queensland, while you're sleeping on the couch, when the cat starts making strange noises and doing strange things, maybe it's time to wake up.
Guess it's summer, eh? Well, he's a big boy, isn't he? A good 7 foot long, that one. Yeah, well, bro, you're going to have to leave, eh? We're going to have to get you out of here, mate. This is going to be fun. Anyway, you don't want to, he wants to hide now. So,
Yeah, wants to hide, all right. So, not very keen to pick up. He said 7 foot. We'll get to that. So what do you do when you've got a snake in your house? And it was eyeing off the cat. I have no doubt about that. That animal, that snake is very, very, very capable of taking out a cat and having it for dinner. What do you do when you don't want to handle it? I mean, it's a carpet python. It's a big carpet python, admittedly. But what do you do when you don't want to handle it? Well,
and that's how you do it. You put the old pipe down, put glove on that end. In he goes. So he wants to hide somewhere. And we'll take him down the back of the pig pen somewhere. Or maybe not. But and we'll just take him out now.
So I think the paper was there on the floor to give you some idea of measurement. It would have been better the other way, I guess. You get a bit of an idea. But that bit of pipe is 6 feet long, right? 6 feet long. Just remember that. And I'm going to go to your chat just to see what some of you are saying about this. Because there you go. And Andrew Andrew knows his snakes, not big. Well, you might want to reconsider that when you look at this.
Typical carpet snake. Here we are, we're down the other end of the farm. I'll just give his tail a bit of a tickle here and off he goes, yep. See you later, big boy. Yep. This is you. Good boy. You're pretty heavy too, I'd say you could 10, 12 kilo.
10, 12 kilo, about 4 meters in length. And it was in the house. Welcome to Australia, folks. Watch out for the dickheads on the road. See you tomorrow.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?